but we have something much worthier. Free, capable citizens who love their country and work hard every day to drive our progress. And I'm very proud to be the team leader of that great nation. The government recognizes education as central to our human capital development. We focus on providing inclusive, equitable, relevant, quality education to our children at all the 3 levels of education. We aim not only to facilitate the growth and development of our children, but also the capacity of graduates to rise to the highest echelons of their careers and to contribute to a more prosperous and equitable society. I recognize that we have achieved numerous important milestones in the education sector, including increased access, greater gender parity, improved infrastructure, and enhanced capitation. The results are undeniable, yet at the same time, our education system remains highly unequal and has not lived up to its promise to level the socio-economic playing field for all Kenyan families and their children. The bottom-up economic transformation agenda sets our plan for rapid economic growth on the foundation of significantly enhanced productivity of our human capital. Our foremost priority is to generate jobs for the millions of Kenyans that are currently without them and make sure that these jobs pay enough to cover daily subsistence as well as savings for future investments. I know that in the commitments that we made, I have been speaking to the stakeholders in this sector, especially in the Higher Education Loans Board, on the gaps that still exist. I know there are gaps that still exist in fully funding our program. And I want to commit to the education stakeholders that the government of Kenya is going to provide sufficient resources. We will provide the resources to make sure that the funding model that we launched the other day for both our TVETs, colleges, and also universities is fully implemented. I have made a commitment because it is the only resource that we have and we are sure about is the human capital. And therefore, whatever it takes, we cannot allow our universities to slip back into debt. We cannot allow our students in TVET not to acquire the skills and competencies that we have set out in our curriculum. We will work consistently. So I am aware that during the budget, there are some gaps that were not properly addressed, but they will. In fact, if there will be a reason for a supplementary budget, that will be one of them, so that we can close all the gaps. I want to assure our universities and our TVETs that we will make sure that the new funding model that is centered around the student, that going into the future, we will not be giving grants to universities, we will be giving scholarships to students going to universities, so that we can account for the education of every student, and so that we can also desegregate which student requires help more than the other. The old funding model treated children from vulnerable backgrounds the same as children who came from those of us who can pay for academies. And the results were disastrous. I am very happy that today we can fully fund 100%, close to 45,000 students from vulnerable families. That all of them in our universities, that the children that come from vulnerable backgrounds can be sure that they will go to university and they will not drop out, because the government of Kenya will ensure that they have 100% scholarship. That assurance, that commitment is what is going to create equity in our midst. The rest of us, myself, my deputy here, this good man, and all these people sitting here, these people, nyinyi mnaweza kujitetea hapo kidogo kidogo namna hii. Lakini wale watu wako kwa bottom muko, tafadhali mkubali hawa tuwapatie msukumo. That's how we are going to create an even and an equal, and we are going to create equity in our country. I have said, and let me say it here because this is the correct forum, that to get value from the huge investment we are making in education, if we are investing 630 billion in education, surely we must account for it. We must have a plan on when these people we have invested 630 billion every year, when they get out of the pipeline, when they come out of school, when they come out of college, when they come out of university, what happens to them? It will be irresponsible, maybe reckless for us not to think about what happens to our children when they come out of college. And that is the reason this year we are intentional, we are deliberate on having a plan on how to create jobs. In my boardroom here, I have spent inordinate hours being granular about how many jobs we are going to create, under which program, on which intervention, on which projects, because it is the responsible thing to do. If we are going to invest 630 billion, if we are going to invest 30% of our budget in educating our young people, we must be deliberate on investing in the areas that will create opportunities for them to find work so that their education, their skills, the competencies they have acquired can be meaningful to them, to society, and we can keep a good account of the use of our hard-earned taxes. It is the reason we have the housing plan. It is the reason we have the digital superhighway plan, complete with the hotspot, 25,000 hotspots, complete with the 1,450 ICT hubs. We are now working with a framework on, I have already told the ministry to work with our county governments so that every vocational training center that is working under the counties is brought on board the digital technology ecosystem so that we can not only provide training, we can begin to walk the talk on digital jobs and also digital commerce. So that is the whole ecosystem of what we are doing. I am saying this in this education forum because on one end is the money we are investing in education. On the other end is the plan to make sure that the money we invest, we get value for it by making sure that the human capital we are training meaningfully contributes to the country and justifies the huge investment we are making. Let me say equally important for us is a question of equity and access to education opportunities. And I have spoken about equity in many ways, making sure that all the children get education, making sure that the vulnerable who do not have food come to school because we can provide, making sure that the children from vulnerable families have affirmative action in making sure that they get through university education or even in our TVET institutions. And I am very happy that this plan gives us the framework to achieve that. And that is why I am very proud of what you people have done. You've really done very well. These imperatives, as well as others, needs inspired us to engage with Kenyans, as I told you, throughout the country, and to consult education and human capital development experts in designing our commitments in the education chapter of the Kenya Kwanza plan. And I am very happy that we are well on course in keeping our commitment on matters education and ensuring that every child in Kenya has an opportunity to be their best. Among our commitments were government-funded in-service training, bridging the teacher shortage within 2 years, reviewing the current system of academic progression, improving the capacity of our day secondary schools, reviewing the tertiary education funding framework for all institutions, building and equipping TVET institutions in the remaining 52 constituencies, establishing the National Open University, providing a year-long paid internship program for all tertiary learners, significantly increasing funding for innovation, research and development, and enhancing the funding available for school feeding program. So on all those aspects, I think we are well on course. I just concluded last week a conversation on matters of internship, and as I said earlier in the day, we're going to build capacity around internship. We have worked with the private sector. I am very happy that the private sector have agreed to partner with us, and we are going to provide policy interventions and incentives to make sure that the private sector can engage at least 50,000 young people who graduate from college and TVETs every year in internships that are paid for and that the government of Kenya is going to support by policy to make sure that that actually happens. I'm also very happy that we have also concluded the process of putting together the Kenya National Open University of Kenya. And this week, I will be granting charter to the National Open University of Kenya. It's a huge milestone. It's something that I worked on when I was the Minister for Higher Education before I was interrupted. But I am very happy that I came to conclude that process, and I want to thank Machogu and team for working round the clock, making sure that all the courses have now been developed, the infrastructure has been put in place, and we will be in concert this week to grant charter to the university that will begin to admit students in September. It's quite a milestone, and I am really happy that we can keep this promise as well that was in our manifesto. Amongst all the other commitments that we intend to keep, and this team has been phenomenally useful in assisting us to conclude that process. These commitments are fundamental by themselves, but also they are absolutely critical for the implementation of better, our bottom-up economic plan. As far as they are concerned, all these plans, time is of the essence. We now need to, as was said by the chair, Professor Munavu, the context is now how do we make sure that none falls through the cracks as we roll out the implementation. You remember that on my first day in office, I did appoint this presidential working party. It's not the first in Kenya. I'm sure it's not going to be the last, because our education has continuously gone through transformation, and to make sure that we keep it instead and up to date in the, with the requirements of our human capital requirements from industry and from elsewhere. And therefore, this report gives us new impetus in making our education better, much more focused, purpose-driven, and hopefully we are going to see the results shortly. Going by the periodic briefings that I got in the course of their work, the summary of the findings and recommendations, I am satisfied that the Working Party has used its time well, consulted thoroughly throughout the country and beyond, applied their expertise and technical capacity, and fully met their terms of reference. The evidence-based analysis of every material issue taken up in the report provides ample basis for further action, which must commence without delay. We now stand at the threshold of tremendous possibility for our nation. Before us is a strong case to transform our society and catalyze our economy by making necessary interventions in education to make it accessible, equitable, inclusive, and aligned with our aspirations to become a more open, democratic, prosperous nation of free and enlightened citizens. It is time to make education accessible all the way to the highest level, to anyone regardless of background, more fulfilling for both learners and tutors, more accommodating of their psychological needs, less examination-oriented, and more aligned with the aptitudes and aspirations of learners, and capable of imparting essential values, including national values and principles of good governance. The moment has come for us to usher in a new era where our education system appreciates that competitiveness and productivity depend on such values as innovation, which is nurtured by encouraging curiosity and imagination, and by allowing learners to explore their gifts and talents. The transformation of our national education system is now underway. These recommendations contained in the report of the Working Party shall be implemented not in the future, but beginning now. We must now direct our attention to the implementation of the recommendations set out in the report. The relevant ministries, departments, agencies must quickly familiarize themselves with the report and expeditiously work with all parties, including the Office of the Attorney General, including the Committee of Parliament, both in the National Assembly and Senate, to see to it that every piece of legislation, regulation required is in place to make sure that we don't lose time and we get full value for this tremendous report that has been worked on by these great people with a lot of expertise, a lot of passion, and a lot of commitment. There is a lot to be done in terms of policy, legislation, organizational, strategic, and administrative measures to actualize the recommendation. And I am clear that the ministry, with all the staff and all the other stakeholders, will be able to work on this. The Cabinet Secretary concerned, together with the Attorney General, must collaborate on the framework to make sure that the implementation of the CBC is rolled out as has been agreed. Quality assurance and standards is kept and managed, and a proper framework established to actualize that. Teacher education and management, we've agreed with Nancy here. We've provided resources for promotion of teachers, making sure that we continuously motivate our teachers to be able to do their best. This year we have provided R1 billion for the promotion of teachers to make sure that we continuously move together and provide the best that we can. There are some laws that that have been recommended, and I am happy that the two chairs are here. We're going to work with you to make sure that the necessary legislation is worked on, complete with bringing public participation on board to make sure that we all speak the same language with the public. We are also going to work together, as you are all aware, to make sure that technology, we leverage also on technology in the delivery of our education curriculum. I am very happy that technology is part and parcel now of our delivery of government services, and obviously it will be front and center in the delivery of our education. So all that is going to come together once we roll out the implementation metrics of the recommendations that have been given by this Presidential Working Party. I want to commit to you that I will lead the team that will make sure that the recommendations are implemented. My good deputy here will not sleep until it is done. And, he knows what he needs to do. He just needs to speak the truth to everybody. Therefore, to all of you, let me say for sure, if there is one team that I have worked with very proudly and that has delivered beyond my expectation, it is this Presidential Working Party on education. You have been forthright, you have been clear. The professors who are here, the education professionals who are here, I can vouch that your credentials are genuine. Because we can see it in what has so far been achieved and in the recommendations that are here. And I promise you that we will not let you down. I know many reports come and they end up gathering dust in government offices. As you have seen our commitment, even before the reports were completed, we were already implementing. So we are walking a different trajectory. Maybe you can accuse us of implementing even when it is not fully baked. But at least it is better than them gathering dust in government offices. I think it's a new paradigm that we were implementing the recommendations as they were coming. So I think if there is any demonstration that we are committed and that we are persuaded that it's the right thing to do, I think you can pick it up from what we have done already. We have already implemented your recommendations on CBC. We have recommended, you have implemented your recommendations on the new education funding model. We are implementing your recommendations on what we should do with university education, on TVET education. And I promise you that whatever is outstanding here, with the same passion, with the same commitment, with the same speed, we are going to make sure that it is implemented. I have full confidence in the ministry leadership, the CS and the PSS and all the other senior officials that they have what it takes to ensure that they implement these recommendations for the good of our children, for the good of our education system, for the good of our human capital, and for the good of our society and country. I also wish to appreciate all the development partners who have worked with us in this journey, including by providing technical and material support to the Presidential Working Party, our friends from the World Bank, our friends from development partners who have facilitated, supported in many ways for us to get here. Our thanks and appreciations to them, and we look forward to working with them going into the future in making sure that this program is fully implemented. So asanteni sana, nimefurahi